Thank you. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. My name is Dada Ibrahimovic. I am a professional development specialist with the Illinois Student Assistance Commission. Today, we will be going over the Financial Aid Application Completion Initiative. Give me one second. My computer. So just before we begin, let's go over some housekeeping items. So this session is being recorded. It will be shared on our on-demand webinars page. We also have a YouTube channel now where we upload all of our PD webinars. So definitely check us out. If you ever miss any of our webinars, you can go on there to see any of our previous webinars. If you're having trouble connecting audio through your computer, you can use the Call Me option for audio. It would call you on your cell phone, and then you'd just be seeing us on your screen. If you do have any questions today, you can go ahead and use the Q&A at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. If you can't see it, you can click the three dots that says panel options, and then you should see Q&A pop up with like a little question mark next to it. Any other of our upcoming offerings are going to be on our PD page, so definitely keep a lookout for that if there's anything else that you would like to join us through the end of this school year. Also, continuing education and professional development hours are available for today's webinar. Just stick around to the end because at the end, I will give you guys the SurveyMonkey link that y'all need to complete for those CE and PD hours. Just wait until the end of the webinar and we will link that in the chat. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Just a little bit about ISAC. So we are the state's financial aid agency. We administer scholarships and grants to students across the state of Illinois who decide to stay in the state of Illinois for college. Our mission statement is providing Illinois students with information and assistance to help make education beyond high school accessible and affordable. And here on the professional development team, we provide professional development offerings on topics such as navigating the financial aid process, resources and support options for underrepresented students, understanding the student loan repayment forgiveness programs, right? Really anything in that realm. If you all are interested in learning more about the FAFSA updates that have been coming up as well, we do have webinars on that, as well as previous webinars that we have recorded and posted on that page. Okay, so let's go ahead and get right into it. So our agenda for today, first we're going to go through the Illinois Financial Aid Application Completion Graduation Requirement, and then we're going to go into the initiative for financial aid application completion. Okay. So do want to go over the Universal Free Application for Federal Student Aid Completion Policy. So currently there are 12 states that have adopted this policy. Illinois became the second state to adopt it. Each state has to determine how the criteria for the policy is implemented. Illinois took this policy effect in the 2020-2021 school year, and we were the only state for the 21-22 FAFSA cycle to have an increase in completion rates. We attest this to, making sure that we have enough trainings out there and that our ISAC Corps members are out in the schools and helping with that. Before that policy took effect, our completion rate was in the 60% range. So what is the Illinois financial aid application requirement? So it just requires that public high school students complete a financial aid application as a prerequisite to receiving their high school diploma. So essentially a graduation requirement. So that would be either they need to file the FAFSA, if they are unable to file the FAFSA and are eligible for the alternative app, for state financial aid, they would file that instead. If they are, not able to complete either of them, or, for whatever reason they decide they do not need a financial aid application, that third option would be to file a non-participation form, the waiver, and we'll go over that as well. So what does this mean for schools? So each school district has to provide support or assistance for each student to comply with that graduation requirement. So that just means, providing a space for students to be able to complete their financial aid applications, whether that be through workshops or office hours, getting your local ISAC Corps members involved, tracking through Gap Access. We'll go through that as well. And for this, it's not intended to keep students from graduating. The law was created so that students know what the financial aid applications are, what they are used for, and that they are available for free for the students. Because I can even just give one example from my personal experience. My brother, when he was going to college, he didn't know what the FAFSA was. So his very first year at Loyola, he didn't apply for a FAFSA, even though we definitely were eligible for both MAP and Pell at the time. He didn't apply for the FAFSA and he had to pay for Loyola his first year out of pocket, right? So the law is trying to mitigate, any students that, may be first gen or don't know about financial aid applications so that they are aware of it, and also complete it, even if they change their mind later and, don't go to a university or whatever the case may be. We just want to make sure that students are aware that it is an option for them and that it would make school more affordable as well. So if a student or parent is unable to submit that financial aid application or waiver, then what would happen is the principal would need to attest that a good faith effort was made to assist that student to file an application or waiver, and I'll go through what that would look like as well. Okay, so for the non-participation form or waiver, so again, this just indicates that the student understands what the FAFSA is, understands what the alternative application for Illinois financial aid is, and then has chosen not to file that application. So the waiver, it becomes available each year when the FAFSA and alternative app become available. And this year it is now online. So a student completes that form online via ISAC student portal, and we'll go through what the waiver looks like as well. So with completing the waiver online, again, it's through the ISAC student portal that they need to complete it. It would be under program applications and status checks. They would go search through there. They would have to scroll to the bottom of the page. And then once they scroll to the bottom of the page, they'll see, as you can see on this slide here, the FAFSA non-participation form, submit here. So something that I do need to note is that if a student is 18 years of age or older, they would complete the waiver themselves. So they make their own account, they complete it for themselves, and they can sign it for themselves. If you are, if you have a student that is still 17, not yet 18, the parent would have to do it on the student's behalf. So definitely make note of that. That is very important that if the student is 17 or younger, the parent has to complete it on the student's behalf. And if the student is already 18 and older, they can complete it for themselves. And then once it's completed and submitted, that information will then populate in your class roster in Gap Access. So not only does Gap Access track both FAFSA and alternative application completion, but it also tracks the non-participation form or waiver completion as well. So just need to make some notes. The non-participation form is not, the end-all be-all, right? Waivers should not be presented as the only option for compliance for students. We do want to be making sure that we are still telling students, to complete a FAFSA or an alternative app if they are eligible for the alternative app and not eligible to complete the FAFSA, right? This is also not intended to be an added barrier to students and parents. We know that, creating an account could be a slight barrier, but luckily with ISAC Student Portal, the account creation process is very easy. So it shouldn't be too much of a barrier to access the form itself. And also it shouldn't be the end of conversation about post-secondary options with your students. Even if they do decide to submit the waiver today, right? And then later on, they're like, hey, I actually do, maybe want to go to the local community college or whatever the case may be, they can still submit the FAFSA or the alternative app even after they submitted the waiver, right? This, waiver is really just for the compliance piece when the student, and the parent are not willing to complete the FAFSA for whatever reason. And again, like I said, if they change their mind, they can at any point and go back and complete the FAFSA or the alternative app if they need to. So it doesn't bar them from doing that if they completed the waiver. Okay, so going into the waiver itself now, this is what the first screen is going to look like when they get signed in. So on the top right-hand corner, you can see they would click login using the student's or the parent's email and password, whatever they use to create that ISAC student portal account. So in order to make an account, they would just need to provide first and last name, challenge questions, email, and then create a password. So like I said, that account creation process is pretty easy. So it doesn't take more than a few minutes to create. So again, we didn't want that to be a barrier for students, but it is a way for us to, track who is completing it. So just make sure that when you have your parents or students complete the waiver and make an account online, that they're using a personal email, just one that they will always have access to. So not a school or a work email. That's really important. So then the student or parent, they create the account on the ISAC student portal, and then this is what it's going to look like when they get logged in. So as you can see, on this very first page, what is on this form. So it just lets them know that by completing this form, they would receive, their diploma. It would hit that requirement, that graduation requirement of completing the FAFSA or the alt app or the non-participation waiver. Also, like I said earlier, it also mentions that if they choose to file that waiver, that does not mean that they can't complete the FAFSA or the alt app later. Okay, so when you're in the form itself, first and foremost, you're going to see I am. So they would just need to click whether they're the student or the parent. And again, if they're 18 years of age or older, it would be the student completing it. If they are 17 or younger, it would be the parent that has to do it. Something important to note that if you do have a student that is an emancipated minor, they will just need to complete a paper non-participation form. More often than not, paper non-participation forms are not really available, but for that specific case for students that are emancipated minors, they would need to do that, and they can do that by requesting a paper non-participation form from FAFSA@isb.net. So just let your students know that are emancipated minors to get that paper form completed. So then they would go ahead and find their high school name. Then the student or the parent, they would fill out the student's name, middle name, last name, as well as if they are the parent, they would be completing the parent first name, middle name, last name. And then also they would need to put in the student's date of birth as well. Okay, so as you can see, the form is pretty short. Again, it's not meant to be any sort of barrier for students. So they also just need to make sure that they read the certification statement just to better understand what financial aid a student will not be considered for if they choose not to complete a financial aid application. So again, this is to make sure that students know that that is an option for them, even if they do complete this non-participation form. So for frequently asked questions, there is a frequently asked questions section as well, where they can look through some of those questions that concern students and families about submitting a financial aid application. So as you're going through it, just make sure that they click and read that as well. And then once they have read that certification statement and the frequently asked questions document, they would go ahead and check yes to that box. I'm so sorry if that was really loud. I'm going to have to mute my computer. Okay. So once they read it, they would click check that box yes, and then they would put the submitter's name, and then they can go ahead and sign and complete that form. Once it is signed and completed, you can download a copy of your form to save for your files by clicking download form, and then they can exit the form by just clicking exit and return to home page. Okay, so this is what the confirmation will look like. So again, students and parents, they have that option to download the form for their own records. Obviously, we recommend that they do that. Students will receive a confirmation email as well of their submission, saying congratulations, you have successfully completed that financial aid application non-participation form. It's a mouthful. You can download it below. Okay, and then if for any reason you need to manage submissions, or the parent or student needs to manage the submissions, they can do that as well. A student or parent can make an edit, excuse me, to their submission if needed. They would just have to go to that page again. They would see that message, welcome back. You can view your previously submitted non-participation form, and they would just have to click that manage submissions box at the bottom, just in case, they may have filled it out incorrectly the first time, or whatever the case may be. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the good faith effort form. So if a student or parent cannot or does not want to complete a financial aid application, so the FAFSA, LTAP, or the waiver, they don't want to do any of it, right? For whatever reason it may be, and there was that good faith effort put in, there was workshops at your school, you reached out to the student, you let them know about the graduation requirement, and they still, for whatever reason, are not doing it. The principal would have to complete a good faith effort form. Only the high school principal will be able to complete the good faith effort form, and the form is completed online via Gap Access. And if you all are already using Gap Access, you know that the principal is the main user anyway, so they would just have to go in and complete that form for each of the students that didn't complete a FAFSA, LTAP, or a waiver. They are just kind of, refusing to complete any of it. Okay, so when you are in Gap Access itself, this is what it's going to look like. You have to pick the student. So here is just an example of a student. You would provide a description of the extenuating circumstances, maybe a reason why the student and parent don't want to complete it, and then the description of good faith effort to assist the student. Again, that would just be talking about, oh, we emailed the student, we called the student and parent, we've had FAFSA workshops again, right? We've, tried to set appointments with them, and we just couldn't get any sort of response back, right? So those could be some of the reasons. And then the principal would just need to click that little box, the principal attestation of good faith effort to the student, and then name of the person completing the good faith effort form as the signature. So that would, again, be the principal. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the Financial Aid Application Completion Initiative and a little bit more about Gap Access itself. So utilizing the Financial Aid Application Completion Initiative, users will have access to data which will allow them to track students. So they can track the students who have completed financial aid application, whether that be the FAFSA or the LTAP. It tracks both, and the non-participation form. So it tracks all three. They can also identify students who have not completed a financial aid application or a non-participation form. So as you're going through the school year, doing frequent checks of Gap Access is really important to know which students to reach out to, which students to email, call, try to set up an appointment with them to get them to complete that graduation requirement, and also teach them about what the FAFSA is. Maybe they don't know what it is, and so they're just going through their senior year just not knowing what it is. And then again, identifying if a student needs assistance with their financial aid application. So, maybe they did file a FAFSA, but no SAI was generated, right? Or it says, whatever it may say not completed, or no SAI calculated, right? So if you see that there is an issue with their financial aid application, that can help you as well. You can reach out to those students just to see, hey, it says that there was no SAI calculated for your FAFSA. Can we just meet so I can see what's going on, and maybe I can help you with completing that or fixing it, whatever the case may be. Okay, so with data matching and how it works, so for public schools, ISB actually provides us with the public school class rosters, and then it gets uploaded automatically. So the class rosters are already up. If you are in your Gap Access, you will be able to see your class roster for this school year. Then your students' rosters, it's then matched with FAFSAs and alternative applications that are filed each day. And ISAC also updates school rosters every day. And also, we update financial aid application completion data every Monday. So this is in normal years, right? So we are having a little bit of a delay. I'm sure you all know, so I will go over that as well and what that's gonna look like. So unfortunately for right now, data matching is delayed just because FAFSA ICERs have been delayed. Matching is not available quite yet. We hope that we can get data matching up by next week, if not the week after. So definitely keep a lookout for that, because we know that ICERs have finally started processing, and it just takes a little while for us to also get that data. So data matching for the class of 2024 will be available in GAP once we can start processing FAFSA and ALTAP data. So just to be on the lookout for that. From what I've heard, it can take another week or two. So definitely just keep a lookout for that. Regardless of that, though, high school data is available. So like the list of your students, the aggregate data for your entire student body, number of MAP eligible students, Pell eligible students, SAI ranges. So if you do need to go in and just see what your class roster looks like, if you need to go in and add or delete students, definitely you can do that as early as today. Those functions should be available for you all. So for private high schools, it does look a little bit different. So for private high schools, we do not get rosters from ISB. So what a private high school would need to do is upload their own most up-to-date list of current seniors, just ensuring that the school receives the most accurate data. This will replace any history of that class, if there is any in Gap Access. Just make sure that all data that is being uploaded is correct, such as birthdays, names, first name, last name, middle initial, date of birth, as it is on their social security cards. Because when you are trying to data match through FAFSA, obviously FAFSA uses, the legal name, date of birth, all of that. So just making sure that it matches what would be on the FAFSA. Otherwise, there may be some issues with data matching if, in Gap Access, you put somebody's nickname instead of their real name, or maybe they go by a different name in school, whatever the case may be. Just make sure in Gap Access it is their full legal name. Okay, so downloading reports are also available. So reports are available to download. A class report, and it can be shared as needed. Reports will include information in a similar format that is presented on Gap Access. The downloaded file can be saved, printed to demonstrate compliance as well for the entire class, having submitted a financial aid application or that non-participation form. Data also can be sorted as needed, including sorting through data to create reports on financial aid application completion. So if you need to, send out a report to all the counselors, in your school, being like, hey, this is a list of your students. Can you just take a look? And you can see, which students have or have not completed a form. This will help you with who to reach out to, right? So downloading reports are always available. Okay, so this is what it's going to look like if you need to download a report. You would just go to the bottom right-hand corner, the Excel report, and you would click on that. And Also, what you can do is there is an add and delete functionality for specific students. So we know that students move into the school, out of the school, throughout the school years. So users can edit a student's name, date of birth, they can add a student, delete a student, all of that. So if they need to change anything, let's say a student says that they did complete a FAFSA, but on your Gap Access it says nothing, and you checked their FAFSA and you see that it's completed and submitted and submitted successfully and all of that, that may be a Gap Access issue. So again, you can add, delete, edit students as needed. So some of the reasons why an application or waiver would be showing up as not completed, just to go over. So could be timing of when the financial aid application or waiver was submitted. So again, it could be that they, submitted the night before and may not show up right away, or the student's name doesn't match with what the school has on record. Again, like I said earlier, it could be that the school is using the student's nickname or a preferred name for that student. So when the class rosters were uploaded, you just didn't, it slipped your mind to even check. Or maybe even you didn't know what their actual legal name was, right? So just making sure that you're checking with the students, what name did you use on your FAFSA? So first and last name could be switched as well accidentally. Maybe they filed the wrong application year for the FAFSA or the alternative app. That does happen some years with some students. Maybe they completed the 23-24 instead of the 24-25 FAFSA. There may be a middle initial that was entered in Gap Access, but that they didn't use on the FAFSA, or vice versa. They didn't use their middle initial on the FAFSA and it's in Gap Access, whatever the case may be. Entered a suffix that was or was not used on the FAFSA. The wrong date of birth can sometimes happen as well. So sometimes people use day, month, year instead of month, day, year. That has happened in the past, so just checking for that as well. Maybe they entered a different high school and didn't check their FAFSA very keenly. Maybe they accidentally entered a very similar high school name to what your high school name was, and they didn't think to double check it. It could be so many different things. So I would say check obviously Gap Access first, and then if you see that Gap Access, all of the information that's on there is matching the FAFSA, then you can also go talk to the student and see, what it could have been on the FAFSA that is making that match not available on Gap Access. So to sign up for Gap Access, I know most of our schools are finally signed up for Gap Access, so that's great. But if you are not yet, what would need to happen is the school principal would need to certify and agree to the terms and conditions of the financial aid application completion initiative. It would be the participation agreement for Illinois educational entities. The school principal can then designate privileges to authorized users as well. So if the principal is not necessarily the one that would be checking financial aid application completion, maybe it's a counselor. The counselor would just need to ask that principal to be a designated user, and the school principal can designate that privilege. Once both of those steps have been completed, designated users will have access to student data. So if they give it to just one counselor or multiple counselors within the building, they can do either or, whatever, makes the most sense for the school. And if there are any questions about Gap Access, whether that be signing up, got logged out of your account, you don't see your class roster data, whatever the case may be, you would need to reach out to ISAC School Services at isac.schoolservices@illinois.gov in order to get some help with whatever Gap Access experiences or anything that your issues that you're dealing with Gap Access. You would need to reach out to ISAC School Services. Okay, so Also through Gap Access, obviously, since we can track, we also began a recognition of excellence awards. So this is just a recognition of efforts from high schools that focus on supporting their students and families through the financial aid process. So the recognition is awarded based on the school's completion rates. Completion rates are calculated based on the high school's class roster that were provided in one of the two ways, right? ISB provided data, or if the private high schools did their own class roster upload. So with the completion, sorry. With the recognition of excellence awards and the completion performance metrics. So we have a completion performance metrics page where you can see where your high school ranks compared to other high schools. So schools are designated one of the following recognitions depending on their completion percentage. So those that get platinum, that just means that 95% of students or more have completed their financial aid applications. If you have gold, that would just mean 85% would have completed. Silver would be 75%. And then bronze would be 65%. So if you have under 65%, unfortunately, you wouldn't get any of these medals. But I think looking to see where you are in comparison to other schools, especially other schools in your area, it can help with, trying to raise that completion data. Maybe you were so close to getting the bronze this last year, so trying to aim for bronze for this year. And then, completion rates from year to year, it can be pretty hard to move up significantly, but I think moving up slowly is definitely doable. Okay, so before we end here today, I do just want to give a couple of shout outs. So we do have our First Generation Scholars Network. So the First Generation Scholars Network are for your first gen students. If you do have a lot of first gen students at your school, definitely let them know about this. The network is free. Services of the network are free. So your first gen students would just be clicking the Join Now button on the ISAC student portal. So joining would allow a student to connect with a mentor, find different first gen programs on campuses, also join check-in events with other, first gen students. So again, if you have a pretty sizable population of first gen in your schools, definitely make sure that they know about this. We also have a FAFSA communication toolkit as well. This is just a resource to assist counselors with communication with families and students on best practices. So if you are, struggling with how to let your students know about what's going on with the FAFSA, definitely look into our communication toolkit. We have emails, phone calls, social media posts, flyers, both English and Spanish. So if you need more communication tools for your students and families, definitely look into our toolkit. Okay, so I do just want to shout out that we have our PACE symposiums coming up. Registration is open for both. April 16th, I know that's coming up quick, but April 16th at the I Hotel and Conference Center in Champaign, registration is open for that. And then we have May 8th at Elgin Community College. So if you want to learn more about the PACE framework and how schools across the state are implementing the PACE framework and attend sessions and meet other people that are implementing the PACE framework, definitely come out, let your other counselors know about this event, and we would love to see you there. Okay. So CE and PD requests. So one of my colleagues is going to open up the chat. You would just need to complete a survey monkey. So you would just need to complete feedback for today's session to request those CE/PD hours. And the due date for it is 4:30 p.m. this Friday, April 12th. We usually give everybody 2 days from the date of the webinar. If you're requesting PD hours specifically, just make sure that you also submit your Illinois educator identification number or your EIN. And again, the links were posted in the chat on the bottom right-hand corner. Okay, thank you all so much for joining. If there are any other questions, again, we have our Q&A open. We'll keep this open for another few minutes here for anybody else that may have any questions. Other than that, thank you so much for joining.